The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my cubicle. An unfamiliar local number. Normally, I'd let it ring into voicemail, but something pushed me to answer. Is this Amelia Chin? A rough voice, clipped but professional. Yes. Who's speaking? Name's Frank DeMarco. I run DeMarco's Pawn and Gold on Riverside. I believe I have something that belongs to you. A Rolex Submariner. My heart stopped. That can't be. I have my father's watch, right? I opened my desk drawer where I kept it during work hours. Empty. Ma'am, you still with me? The watch? I whispered. It's gone. I figured as much. Listen, can you come down to the shop? There's something you need to see, and I'd rather not say more over the phone. I left work at once, hands trembling as I drove, and Dad's watch, the only thing he'd left meant solely for me, had been in that drawer yesterday morning. I checked it the way I always did, brushing my fingers over the inscription on the back. To my daughter Amelia, may time always be on your side. Love, Dad. He'd worn it every day of my childhood, through long construction shifts, Sunday dinners, my school plays, even during chemo when his wrist grew too thin and we had to tighten the band. He pulled me close on his deathbed and pressed it into my palm. This is yours, Mia, only yours. That was 3 years ago. 2 years before my mother married Richard, and 18 months before Richard's son, Tyler, moved in with his big dreams and even bigger appetite for other people's money. DeMarco's pawn shop sat wedged between a nail salon and a check cashing store, the kind of strip mall where desperation lived year-round. Frank DeMarco looked exactly like a pawn shop owner should. Thick neck, wary eyes, gold pinky ring. But when he saw me, his expression softened. You look like him, he said quietly. Your dad, he used to stop by here sometimes back in the day. He did? Construction men always need tools. He was one of the good ones. Always paid off his loans. Never tried anything shady. Frank stepped into the back and returned with a familiar leather box. This came in yesterday, he said. Guy claimed it was his to sell. But when I opened it up to inspect it, he placed the box on the counter and lifted the lid. There was Dad's watch, smaller than I remembered, almost fragile. Normally, I don't question sellers too much if the item checks out, Frank went on. But this watch, your dad, he'd never have let it go. So I looked through our records. And your father pawned this watch exactly once, 15 years ago, paid it back with interest in under a month. Frank met my eyes. The loan was for $3,000, and the date lines up with when you started at that fancy private high school. My throat tightened. I'd gotten into St. Mary's Academy on an academic scholarship, but there were still fees, uniforms, books, activities. Dad had said he'd picked up some overtime work. He never mentioned pawning the thing he treasured most. That's when I realized something was off about this sale, Frank said. But that's not the real reason I called you. He lifted the watch and turned it over. When I was examining it, checking its authenticity, I noticed something. He pressed a spot on the side, and the back popped open in a way I'd never seen. This isn't standard. Someone modified the watch to hide a small compartment. Inside was a sheet of paper folded impossibly tight. I haven't read it, Frank said. Figured if your dad tucked it away like that, it was meant for certain eyes only. My fingers trembled as I unfolded the tiny note. Dad's handwriting, smaller than usual, but unmistakably his. Mia, if you're reading this, something's happened to the watch. Check the safe deposit box at First National. Box 447. The key is in my toolbox, inside the level. The watch is yours, but what's in that box is your future. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Dad, what happened? Frank's voice felt distant. I need to buy the watch back. How much? Frank shook his head. The guy who brought it in, tallish kid, maybe mid-20s, wouldn't stop rambling about his app startup. Tyler, of course. He took cash for it. $8,500. But here's the thing. I never filed the paperwork. Technically, this transaction hasn't happened. What do you mean? I mean, I've been in this business 30 years. I know stolen goods when I see them, even when the thief has a key to the house. He slid the watch toward me. Take it. If anyone asks, it was never here. I can't just... Your dad helped me once. My kid needed surgery and I was behind on rent. He did a roofing job for me at cost. Let me pay him back over 6 months. Frank's rough voice softened. Man never brought it up again. This is me settling that debt. I left the pawn shop clutching the watch, thoughts racing. Dad's toolbox was still in the garage. Mom had wanted to toss it years ago, but I refused. The level he mentioned was his favorite. An old Stanley he taught me to use when I was 8. But first, I had questions that needed answers. I found Mom in the kitchen with Richard, both leaning over coffee and what looked like bank statements. They lifted their heads when I walked in, and I saw it instantly. The flash of guilt, sharp and unmistakable, before Mom smoothed her expression into confusion. Mia, what are you doing home? I set the watch on the counter between us. Looking for this. The silence stretched thin. Where did you... I started. Where did I find the watch you stole from my desk drawer? The watch you pawned for Tyler's ridiculous app idea. The watch that was the only thing my father ever left me. My voice stayed steady, far steadier than I felt. Is that what you were going to ask? Now, Mia. Richard stood, sliding into his mediator voice. Let's not be dramatic. Tyler needed capital for his business. His third business, after the food truck that never launched and the cryptocurrency mess. This one's different, Mom cut in. He has a partner, a business plan, funded by stealing from me. It's not stealing, Richard said firmly. We're a family. Family shares resources, like Tyler shares his trust fund with me. Oh, wait, he blew that on a Mercedes and a trip to Cabo. That's different. How? How is it different? Mom stood, her expression hardening. Because Tyler has potential. He's building something. You just sit on valuable things, while people with vision need resources. There it was, the truth she'd tiptoed around since marrying Richard. I had a steady job, a quiet life, no big ambitions. Therefore, I deserved less. Tyler had dreams, so he deserved everything, even what wasn't his. I want the money back, I said softly. Every penny of the $8,500. Richard laughed. We don't have it. It's already invested in Techno Solutions, then liquidated. You can't just threaten us. I picked up the Rolex. This was reported stolen this morning. I have the police report number. Either I get the money back, or I press charges. You wouldn't, Mom gasped. Tyler could go to jail. Tyler committed a felony. That's not on me. After everything we've done for you, Mom's voice went shrill. We let you live here. I pay rent. Above market rate, actually. We're your family. Dad was my family. This watch was his legacy to me. And you let your husband and his son steal it like it meant nothing. I left them sputtering and went to the garage. Dad's toolbox sat under his old workbench, dusty but untouched. The Stanley level was in its usual place. I'd used it with him 100 times, checking cabinets, learning that close enough wasn't good enough when you were building something meant to last. Inside the level's bubble chamber, wrapped in plastic, was a small key. First National Bank was downtown, a building Dad had helped renovate back in the 90s. The safe deposit box needed 2 keys, mine and the bank's. The manager, an older woman who remembered my father, didn't ask questions. Box 447 was larger than I expected. Inside were 3 things: a manila envelope, a leather journal, and another letter. I opened the letter first. Mia, if you're reading this, then you found my little insurance policy. Your mother doesn't know about this box. I started it when you were born because I knew even then you were going to be special. The envelope holds bonds, bearer bonds from my father worth around $100,000 now, maybe more. The journal has all the details of the contracting business. Client lists, contacts, outstanding invoices that were never collected. There's probably another $50,000 there, if you want to pursue it. But here's what I really want you to know. I didn't leave you just a watch. I left you time. Time to choose your own path, without worrying about money. Time to leave if you need to. Time to be yourself without apology. Your mother's a good woman, but she sees life in terms of who deserves what based on who makes the most noise. You were always quiet like me. That doesn't make you less deserving. It makes you observant, smart, careful. Use this wisely. And remember, the watch isn't just jewelry. It's a reminder that time is the only real currency we have. Don't let anyone steal yours. All my love, Dad. P.S. If that boyfriend of yours is still around, The one who borrowed money and never paid it back? Dump him. You deserve better. I laughed through my tears, even the boyfriend line. Dad had been right about Marcus, who I dumped 6 months after Dad passed. The bonds were there as promised. The journal was full of Dad's meticulous notes, including several major contractors who still owed him money. One name leapt out: Richardson Construction, which owed $15,000 for a job Dad finished a month before his diagnosis. They were still in business, still successful. They probably assumed the debt died with him. They were wrong. I spent that night in a hotel making plans. The next morning, I hired a lawyer, Diane Vasquez, an estate recovery specialist. She studied Dad's journal and smiled like a shark your father kept. Impeccable records. This is all actionable. The bonds are clean and these debts don't disappear just because someone dies. How long to recover it all? The bonds immediately. The debts, give me 3 months. I paid the retainer and drove back to Mom's house. I couldn't think of it as home anymore. They were in the living room with Tyler, who was gesturing wildly as he pitched his app. Revolutionary integration of blockchain and social media. He stopped when he saw me. "Amelia," he said with practiced charm. "Look, about the watch, save it." I turned to Mom and Richard. "I'm moving out today." "Don't be ridiculous," Mom started. "Over a watch? Over a betrayal? Over you choosing them over me again and again? Over you letting them steal from me because you think I don't deserve what's mine?" "Where will you go?" Richard asked, probably calculating whether they could rent my room for more. "That's not your concern anymore." Tyler stood. "I'll pay you back when the app takes off." "No, you'll pay me back now. $8,500 plus interest. My lawyer will be in touch." "Lawyer?" Mom went pale. "Mia, you can't. I can. I am." Dad always said, the best time to stand up for yourself is the moment you realize you're being stood on. I packed my things. Not much, really. Everything that mattered fit into 2 suitcases. The watch went back on my wrist where it belonged. As I loaded my car, Mom came outside one last time. "Your father would be ashamed," she said coldly, "turning on family like this." I looked at her, really looked at her, seeing the woman who stood by while her new family dismantled my old one piece by piece. "My father," I said steadily, "left me more than you ever knew. And the only thing he'd be ashamed of is that it took me this long to see you for what you are." I drove away and didn't look back. The bonds cashed out at $127,000. They'd accrued more interest than Dad calculated. Diane recovered $43,000 of the outstanding debts within 6 weeks. Richardson Construction paid in full to avoid a lawsuit that would expose their pattern of stiffing contractors. Tyler's app failed within 3 months. He burned through the watch money on office space and logo design without ever building the actual product. Richard called to ask if I could help with a small loan. I hung up. Mom tried reaching out through relatives, painting me as the ungrateful daughter who abandoned family over material possessions. I sent them all the same response, a photo of the police report for the stolen watch with Tyler's name highlighted. The calls stopped. I used Dad's money to buy a small house in the neighborhood where he'd grown up. Nothing fancy, but solid. Good bones, he would have said. I kept his toolbox in my garage, his level still in its place of honor. The watch rests on my nightstand at night, ticking like a steady heartbeat. Sometimes I open the secret compartment just to reassure myself that it's all real, that Dad really did think ahead, really did protect me, even after he was gone. Time is the only real currency we have. Dad knew that. He knew the watch mattered to me, not for its price, but for what it represented. All the time we'd shared, and all the time he'd worked to give me a future. He also knew one more thing, that someone would eventually try to steal it from me. So he made sure that even if they took the watch, they couldn't take what mattered most. The time to choose my own life. The time to stand up for myself. The time to understand I'd always been worthy of every second.